Option selects, big topic. Lots of people talking about it at different levels of kind of interest and knowledge, and what are the effects of it, basically. So let's try to define it in the most basic terms. I'll take my swing, Jason will take his swing, then we'll debate back and forth on each other.
Sounds good.
But basically, like, you do one input or one set of inputs, let's say, and the system is going to select the option for you.
That's why it's called option select.
Ooh.
Super important to explain that dodge attacks, like a lot of things that like some players might feel are option selects because they cover multiple options, would be option selects. And like the biggest offender for this, I would say, is dodge attacks, right? So people feel that, well, if I see something coming up and I do a dodge attack, then I beat feint to guard break in some sense. I beat like the attack, I beat like a bunch of different things, right? The problem with that logic is that an option select like has two different outputs. So that's why, like, when we do like something we call like parry option selects, and dodge attacks are different, and dodge attacks are not option selects, because when you do a dodge attack, you're always going to do a dodge attack. No matter what happens, the dodge attack is going to come out. Whether you dodged it, whether your opponent feinted, whatever happened, it's still going to happen. Whereas option selects, in the way that we're touching them and we're approaching them, means that you either parry or do something different.
Mm-hmm. So there's a distinction between something that's safe and something that's an option select, basically.
Well, yeah, and it's basically the idea that, like, if you have an option select, then two different things are going to happen. Yeah. Like, there's two different. It's not about the outcome. It's about what your character is going to do. And in the case of a dodge attack, for example, then you're always going to do dodge attack. When you try to do a superior block light, you're always going to throw that light regardless. It's just that sometimes it'll block, sometimes it won't. So that's not necessarily an option select like that. It was outer top heavy. And then the Warden does the same thing, right? He tries to parry using zone attack input. But you can say that in this case, if the Peacekeeper lets the attack go, the zone attack is always going to come out, and it'll be interrupted, and the parry doesn't come out, right? So, and if you get, but on the same page, if the Peacekeeper feints her top attack, then the Warden's zone attack is going to come out, and then she would still have to parry it, block it, dodge it, whatever happens, right? So the tech that we've put in for this at a super high level is that anytime you would input something that could result in a parry and something else, so in this case it would be a parry or a zone attack, the parry will never come out, right? So in this
there's variety of zones in the game real quick, like Raider zone sucks as an option select because it's slow. Neutral zone sucks as an option select because you're not actually outrunning, guard break or anything like that. So you're like, okay, what's the point of this? And then same deal on Blackbriar or Gladiators melee zones, which are quite strong from that perspective. So we're kind of expecting to see the effectiveness of those kind of three types of zones come a little closer because of the option select not being there. And we're also kind of expecting the overall power of melees to not be as far ahead of unblockable attacks, unblockable parryable attacks, sorry.
Yeah.
We would like the Orochi to be able to open. We would like the Orochi to be able to hit with stuff once it's in a chain. And we would like it to have some external pressure so it can fight in group fights.
So first change, right? So dodge cancels. So Orochi can now cancel all of his non-dodge attack recovery. That's super important. You can't dodge cancel your dodge attacks. So when they're hit, when they're blocked but not superior blocked, and when they miss into a dodge, so Max has a quick video here we can see. Yeah, so the idea is like after every single one of your attacks, not just your finishers anymore, you can cancel your recovery into a dodge. You can go side dodge, target swap into other people. You can do a bunch of different things. So let's look at the next one, Storm Rush. So Storm Rush has gotten quite a bit of changes. You can now access Storm Rush from both front dodge and back dodge. Before it was just back dodge, so now you can actually front dodge into something. All three sides now have 400 ms visible indicators. It was like 3 on one side, 4 on the other, and then I think 6 or 7 on the top. that experiment didn't necessarily super work. And now on top of that, all three sides are undodgeable. So that makes a big difference too, because you can't just beforehand you could just block top and then just side dodge, and you would like if you had a static guard character, you would just avoid Storm Rush altogether. And it also now costs 12 stamina to enter and 10 to faint, and there's absolutely no other stamina cost.
Value to like be able to run down people who want to dodge or roll out of a combat scenario. So this is cool. I know you might be thinking, hey, with those timings, is it really that good of a mix-up? We'll come back to that later on. I know JC wants to hold off on what is the last piece of this puzzle, but yeah, it feels good to do this at least. I'll say for now.
All right, good. So now we're going to look at Riptide. So Riptide Strike was not super good in the past. So there's a couple of changes. First is 500 milliseconds. Used to be 6, so that's a little bit faster, so that's good. It also now has iframes, so you can actually dodge attacks with it, kind of like what a dodge attack should be able to do. And it's no longer interrupted on non-superior block, which means that you can potentially do it on somebody and they can't just block top and go, okay, well, you know, it doesn't matter, because then you can still go into your pressure and do that sort of stuff. So that's pretty interesting.
You can see here, like it, you don't quite see in the video, but it's better at dodging, so this is cool. And if it's not stopped on block, this can be quite useful in group fights from at least my experience so far.
Okay, so now side and front dodge lights. So same as Riptide, the only change that we've done with these guys is that they're no longer interrupted on non-superior block. Again, same type of thing. We want them to be able to be usable in group fights and that sort of stuff. And also, like, because they're slower, the idea is that at least for side dodges, like normally you want to be able to like dodge bashes, and then some characters have like recover super quickly. So even if they're blocked, you can still go into your pressure afterwards, right? Have something a little bit new. Oh my god, what is this? A kick! Everybody has been requesting a kick on Orochi for the longest time. He actually did need an opener quite a bit. So this is what we're doing with Orochi for a bash, basically. Is he has a front dodge kick, right? So you do front dodge guard break. Like the attack itself is 500 milliseconds. You can do it at 300 ms into the front dodge, and you can delay until 5. Like a lot of what we've been doing with the past reworks. We find that this timing works quite a bit, and it's not as, it still works. The mix-up that it has still works, but it's not as frustrating as it is with some characters that have it like super quickly. So that's good. And then when it lands, it confirms a chained light attack.
Yeah, I mean, you can see here, it's like, well, if I can tell this Orochi is going to dodge forward at me and then like do a kick, it's kind of in the same boat as, let's say, someone like Centurion. So it's quite good at what it does, but is not necessarily the greatest opener of all time. But you pair this with forward dodge Storm Rush, which means you can't just like dodge roll it on, hey, I see dodge, therefore I'm out, right? The Storm Rush is going to run you down. So actually you have to deal with like, is this a dodge forward kick? Is this a Storm Rush? And Orochi dodging forward is now quite a scary deal.
Every single non-bash opener, so basically all of his openers except for kick, because kick guarantees a second light, so that's okay. They all guarantee a combo light attack. Before it was just on top light, now it's on every single attack that he has. So he gets a little bit more damage off of every single attack that he does, but on top of that, it also lets him access a bunch of different things. So that's pretty interesting. His side away finishers also have larger trajectories, so you can use them a bit more in group fights. They're still 700 ms, so you can still do like interesting things where like you maybe like you dodge attack somebody, swap target, do a side away finisher, and you can tag a couple of more people. So that's pretty good. And they also have extra forward movement. We've seen that works quite well with some other characters, so we've pushed towards that a little bit. So yeah,
we're kind of hoping it's going to hit that sweet spot of both sides have something useful to use on this kit.
Awesome. All right, and so last but not least on Orochi, we have Deflects. So we've done a couple of things on the deflect attacks. Previously, Orochi had like a deflect light or heavy. The heavy version was super situational. You would only really use it against like some specific attack that had massive recovery. Sometimes you could like bait some people, but it wasn't super effective. So what we've done is we've straight up removed the heavy version. So you can't really do it. You can't do it at all anymore, actually. But we've buffed the light one so that it forces a reaction on your opponent. Before it didn't at all. You would just do like a quick attack, so it was like it didn't work as well. So at least with this, you should be able to force your opponent into like a specific animation, so it works a little bit better. and it also leads to a combo light, like other attacks. So you can actually do like deflect, light, and then go into your top heavy finisher, do it kind of whatever you'd like to do. That works quite well. So you see that the warden here, when he gets hit by the deflect attack, actually like does this, a little different thing, like close to what we had with the Hurricane Blast version.
We'd like Raider to kind of hit that sweet spot, being able to attack a little bit more than it is, being able to do the kind of group fight setup that Warlord's able to do, so that you're kind of like, well, if I'm picking one of these two, should I pick Raider maybe?
That Storming Tap is now 400 milliseconds. It used to be 5, so it's much harder to react to. It's no longer interrupted on non-superior block, so you can't just block and just go, oh, well, it doesn't matter. But on top of that, we've removed the variable soft feint timing. That was causing a lot of weirdo animation issues, on top of not being especially good, because when it was 500 ms, like it was still reactable, so it didn't really make a sense. So that wasn't super effective. And so because now it's 400 ms, the variable soft feint timing was not necessary at all anymore. And it also deals damage depending on how it was accessed, right? Because there's 2 ways to do Storming Tap. There's from dodge or as a soft feint. So depending on which version you do, you're gonna deal different damage. So Steph, okay. So next up, we have uninterruptible stance timing. So basically armor. So Raiders heavy attacks, especially as heavy finishers, had armor starting super early in a lot of cases, and it made it so that it was really frustrating playing against them. You couldn't do dodge attacks. There's a bunch of stuff you couldn't do because he would just power through them with his armor all the time. So we've actually fixed the armor timing so they start when you can actually feint. So it means that you can no longer just go, hey, it doesn't really matter. I'll just throw out my heavy, and if I absorb an attack, great, I can feint and then guard break and get like a crazy thing with Stampede Charge or whatever. So it's more in line with what we're doing with other heroes. Next up, zone attacks. So zone attacks, it's one line, but it's a big change.
Yeah.
Every single one of Raider's zone attacks now costs 12 stamina instead of I think it was like 50 or 60 from neutral and like 35 in chains. It's not always 12. So the idea is that we want to make sure that these attacks feel as if they were like just regular heavy attacks. They're slower. They don't have armor. They're not as good in a lot of different situations, but at the same time, they're big unblockables with big arcs. You can use them in group fights and stuff. Top Light and Chains is always 500. All of his Top Light and Chains are like the same speed instead of being like much slower as they went. That did not make any sense. So now it's much better. Top Heavy Finisher is 900 instead of being 1,000. That's to ensure that after like a Storming Tap or after a bunch of different things, you can actually end up guard breaking someone who's trying to run away or whatever. And Stampede Charge is now 500 milliseconds as well. So specifically for Stampede Charge stuff, like why is it down to 500? Because it seemed to be, it wasn't that bad at 6, right?
I can think of someone else who's got it at that timing and has a pretty good sprint melee that has its uses, let's say. But that's kind of the idea, is like this is one hit timing at 500 ms versus Warlord, which is like 5 to who knows how long it stays on when you hold. So that's kind of the deal, is like we're going to make a pretty significant change, let's call it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Right, so that's it. So our logic and our idea for Shinobi is we want to make sure that we're focusing him on being more of a ganker and a 1v1 hero, and the idea, a healthy ganker, right? But the idea, a lot of it is we want to focus on landing more sickle rain. Sickle rain is his main ganking tool. So ranged attacks, we've completely removed charging of attacks from neutral, and we've removed ranged guard break. You can't also just stay out of range, stay off screen, charge your attacks, throw them, do a ranged guard break, do all that sort of stuff. But we still have a ranged heavy attack in a different form on the character.
Sitting 10 meters away, whipping your thing around, waiting to do guard break when you know the opponent presses any kind of button, and therefore you get a free ranged guard break that they can't counter no matter what, into a sickle rain, into the free heavy, and the guy's half dead. or completely dead at this point. That just doesn't work. Heroes don't have tools to deal with this in For Honor. So I mean, like, the only options are give everybody some kind of anti-shinobi tool, which is completely unrealistic, and the answer of what this tool would look like is pretty strange.
Yeah.
Or this has got to change up and on the opening part of the kit in some way. So that's what we've done.
We have something that I like to call all roads lead to Sickle Rain, right? So what does that mean? The idea, and we're going to go through like Shinobi's new kind of flow as we go along, because it's a little bit like it's all tools that he mostly had before, but they're refocused. But the idea is that we want you, like I said earlier, we want you to land as many Sickle Rains as you can, so you can maximize your ganking potential. It also feels good in 1v1. So there's a lot of stuff there, but the idea is that that's it. Like, as we'll see, like going on, everything leads to Sickle Rain. No matter what you do, the end result should always, always, always be I can land a Sickle Rain.
Does a ton of damage. You get to hold them in a gank position, so someone can drop a heavy or a feed on them while they're down. It's a tremendously good move. I would be happy to have this move on any hero if I was that hero.
Yeah, right. Okay. So now let's talk about Sickle Rain itself. We've done some changes, right? So the top version is now unblockable, and it's 800 milliseconds instead of being 7. So it's a little bit slower, but it's unblockable. It works well. It gives a lot of pressure in 1v1. The side versions are undodgeable. Now, normally this is not a mix-up that is super good in 1v1, because another thing we've done is that the additional hits don't require strict timing anymore. They used to have to like hit light at like very, very specific times. You can just mash it and it's always going to come out. We're kind of getting out of those little like really specific timing things, because it increases input complexity without really giving anything interesting. So we can see the video that said, so top heavy is unblockable, sides are undodgeable. The sides are still 700, by the way, so they're still kind of interesting there. Chain attacks, because that's a big part of Sickle Rain as well. So Shinobi now is able to access Sickle Rain after chain lights and combo lights. So that's a big difference. So you can actually now do like light Sickle Rain or heavy light Sickle Rain, that sort of stuff. So it opens up his neutral pressure a little bit more. And Guard Break also now leads directly to Sickle Rain, kind of like what Range Guard Break used to do, right?
Now actually you can do light and pressure, right? So that's a big flow and kind of pressure positive change for you.
Perfect. All right, that works pretty well. Next up, we have dodge kicks. You can do your dodge kicks after a single dodge instead of just after double dodge. You can still do it after double dodge, so that's okay. But you can do a single dodge into a kick now, and it now only chains to a specific ranged heavy. So that's gonna be like we're gonna see it here. You can do front dodge kick into range heavy. You can do side dodge kick. You can do all sorts of stuff. So it works better as both an opener from neutral as well as counter attacks. So that's still quite good. So we're gonna go next into range heavy. Range heavy is now a bash that deals damage. So we're gonna have to talk about that a little bit. But the idea is that you're gonna do a dodge kick into a range heavy. So you're going to go bash into a bash, but this bash deals damage, so it's more kind of like an unblockable. It's a bash partially because we don't want it to be able to be parried like in weirdo situations, so it's literally just like a confirmed attack. It also changed to front roll like it did before, and it's also target swappable, so you can do side dodge kick on somebody, target swap into range heavy onto somebody else, but because it's a bash, because you can't just access it every single time, it feels way, way, way better, right?
Yeah, so if you still want to be annoying with your ranged guard break shenanigans, or ranged shenanigans, you can. Just not very often and in a particular way. And the other thing I like about this one is because it's not a heavy, we don't have those questions about like, hey, does my character get its parry follow-ups on Shinobi or no, which is wildly inconsistent currently in live.
The important thing to do is like you still do it by pressing heavy attack, so it's still like you still get the same feeling that you had before after your kicks. That's still pressing heavy. It's just the outcome is a little bit different. Next we have front roll, right? So as we were saying, that range heavy changed to a front roll, so that was still part of his kit before, but it wasn't working quite well. And so now what we have is that front roll changed to Sickle Rain as well as flip kick, and it's also target swappable, right? So you could, in theory, go side dodge kick, target swap range heavy, target swap roll to somebody else, and then present them with a mix-up, right? And the mix-up here works. We'll see why with flip kick, but the idea is that like you have that mix-up after a front roll where it's, oh, am I gonna do a flip kick or am I gonna do a side sickle rain that's undodgeable? So that's why sickle rain here is undodgeable, is to allow those types of mix-ups to exist. And now when flip kick lands, instead of going to a range heavy, you go into a combo heavy, which is a new move we're looking to on the next slide. But the idea is that it's like you're gonna go, when you manage to land that kick, you go into a heavy, and then that heavy leads to sickle rain and other things. Let's look at combo heavy, right? So combo heavy is a new option that Shinobi has. That's after a flip kick. It can execute, so that's pretty good. It doesn't do a ton of damage, but it can still execute, and it chains to sickle rain. So basically, you do your flip kick into that guaranteed heavy, into a sickle rain. You do a lot of mix-ups, and again, this is what I was talking about earlier, where like all roads lead to sickle rain. The end result of a side dodge kick, which you always get to if you play your cards right, is always going to be a sickle rain at the end, which is always interesting. So Steph, like the one question we have here is, why is this a heavy? Why isn't it a light instead? What do we want to do here?
For me, it was the input comfort that I felt was the most important part of this. Is like if you do kick, you press heavy afterwards. That's now you know how to play Shinobi.
Yeah.
And for me that was a good thing.
Yeah.
What about you?
Really well. There's the other thing that I like about this is that like first of all, it allows for more execute, so that's always cool, right? Like we always want to be able to have characters to execute a little bit more. And on top of that, because it's a heavy, we end up having like your opponent is in a reaction for a little bit longer, so it makes the follow-up top heavy unblockable a lot more threatening because it's harder to interrupt, it's harder to dodge out of. It's like, so it makes the mix-up that much more potent, right? And again, all roads lead to sickle rain. Everything there leads to sickle rain. So let's go into like the end of this. So like basically, I want to recap the whole flow with his kicks and how that things work. So basically, the idea is you're gonna do a kick, right? So either from front to initiate or from side to counter, and then you're always going to your range heavy. So after your range heavy, you always go into your front roll, and that's where kind of like the mix-up start. But it's interesting because he has a different type of way of approaching things that nobody really has. It's a bit more complex. There's a bit more time that you spend in those things, and your outs as a defensive player are a little bit different. But in the end of the day, it's literally just kick into range heavy into front roll, and then it's either sickle rain or kick or front flip, and then that front flip is gonna go. I just noticed the slide is like.
Yes. Imagine flip kick in there instead of sickle rain at some point.
Yeah, that's it, right? So that's it. So you go into a flip kick, to combo heavy, again into sickle rain. So the whole flow is
same mix up every time. Same result every time.
What's interesting here is that like let's say you read correctly, and you managed to like you dodged a flip kick or you stayed put for the sickle rain, then Shinobi kind of stops here, right? Whereas if he keeps going, then he keeps going into more and more and more mix-ups. So you have to be really careful when you face him and go where you want to go and do that sort of stuff. So instead of being a sliding kick, it's a kind of a handstand kick. So we have a video for this to see what it looks like. So basically, as a Shinobi, you can go this, you do like that little handstand kick. That handstand kick also combos to the same combo heavy that you get after a flip kick. So again, you press guard break, you have a heavy afterwards every single time. That's what's pretty cool about this here. Like a lot of things are like streamlined so that you don't have to rack your brain to, oh, what am I gonna do? You know, that sort of stuff. So first of all, teleport, which is basically Shinobi's deflect attack, you now need to manually activate it using guard break. Before it used to be automatic, so whenever you deflected with a Shinobi, you would automatically teleport, apply a bunch of bleed, all that sort of stuff. So now you have to do it manually. This might seem like it's a nerf, but it's not, because the idea here is that sometimes you might not want to use that teleport. Now you can choose, so that works quite well. So teleport now changed to teleport kick and sickle rain. Before it only changed to teleport kick and it was guaranteed. So teleport kick is no longer guaranteed, so you can dodge it, but then you have that undodgeable sickle rain mix up there. So after a deflect, your opponent has to go, oh, is he going to do a kick? Is he going to do a sickle rain? And then react and read accordingly.
And boom, it's another mix up. It's
exactly,
much more fun and interactive. It's super cool.
And again, all roads lead to sickle rain, right? Everything it's no longer guaranteed, and the teleport kick now guarantees a range heavy every single time, right? So when you do land a teleport kick, you get that range heavy into front row mix up again. So that again, like the whole kit kind of like meshes and like goes well together with this. So it works quite well. You get a lot of mix ups out of all your options basically. So that's quite strong. So Steph, how do you feel about this?
I love it. More mix-ups is good. More interaction points is good. All the coolness that you had as Shinobi is still there. But now it's always like, am I going to hit this mix-up and mess up my opponent, or are they going to get to play against me? Versus before, continuous guaranteed stuff is cool, but it's not nearly as cool. I think so. I think when you get it here, you're going to be super satisfied.
Awesome. All right. So last but not least, backflip. So backflip, we've changed it a little bit so that it's only accessible when you land a hit, except for your range heavy attacks, so that goes to front roll. But after any other hit, Shinobi, if you hit dodge, you're gonna backflip. But it only works on hit, so you can no longer just go, I'm gonna throw out a heavy at somebody or like an enhanced light or whatever, and then just backflip and get out of trouble. You have to actually land something to get into backflip.
You've got options. They all look awesome. They actually have utility. I don't know. It's super fun to.
Yeah. There's a lot of you decide with this hero now. It sounds like a lot of picking your spots and trying things.
Yeah.
Look at.
I personally find Shinobi is he plays really, really differently, but at the same time, what's interesting is that we didn't give him that many tools. It's literally just that the tools that he had now work, right? And so I find that's what's interesting with the character is that he had access, he had all these little things, but they needed tweaking for them to work, and then we removed the more problematic parts of his kit, and it worked quite well.
These are all good points. I mean, like the mix-ups were there; they just weren't very good. Now I think they've all been kind of like tuned to really being quite interesting and healthy mix-ups. And at the other side, as you say, like the creativity I think is gonna show on one player versus another player. It's like, how does this one play? How does that one play? Can you figure out what is the best way to get through this whole like group fight scenario in this particular case? Yeah. And if the answer is yes, you're gonna look like a freaking ninja, let's say. Yeah.